Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this video I'm going to talk about Glen Ord Distillery. Glen Ord Distillery is located in the Scottish Highlands in the Muir of Ord and is the only remaining single malt Scotch whiskey distillery on the Black Isle. Glen Ord Distillery was founded in 1838 by Thomas Mackenzie and was originally named Ord Distillery Company. In 1896, upon Thomas Mackenzie's death, the distillery was sold to James Watson and Company, whiskey blenders of Dundee, who purchased the distillery for £15,800. They remained owners for over 25 years. From 1917 to 1919, the distillery was closed due to World War I. The distillery was closed again from 1939 to 1946 during World War II. In 1923, James Watson and Company sold the distillery to Thomas Dewars and Sons of Perth, who amalgamated with the Distillers Company. In 1930, the Distillers Company sold the distillery again to Scottish Malt Distillers, a subsidiary company of Distillers Company Limited. In 1985, Distillers Company Limited, including its subsidiary Scottish Malt Distillers, merged with Guinness plc, which was then reorganized under the name United Distillers Limited. In 1997, Guinness and Grand Metropolitan merged to form Diageo. They have expanded Glen Ord to its current size, with much of its expansion happening since 2011. Glen Ord Distillery Production. Glen Ord Distillery owns Glen Ord Drum Maltings, which also provide malt for other Diageo distilleries. They have 2 stainless steel mash tuns with a 12.5 ton mash, 22 wooden washbacks with a fermentation time of 75 hours. They have 14 stills with shell and tube condensers, and the distillery has a capacity of 11 million liters. In addition to single malt bottlings, Glen Ord also provides whiskey for Johnnie Walker blends and independent bottlers such as the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. The Glen Ord Distillery Core Range. The Glen Ord 12-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey, bottled at 43% alcohol by volume, and sells at the distillery for £40 for a 70 cl bottle. The Glen Ord 15-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey is bottled at 40% alcohol by volume and sells for £55.5 for a 70 cl bottle at the distillery. The Glen Ord 18-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey, bottled at 40% alcohol by volume and sells for £100.5 for a 70 cl bottle at the distillery. So if you're wondering why I am showing you distillery prices for Glen Ord single malts, it's because Glen Ord can be difficult to find in the United States of America, and here is the reason why. Singleton, owned and marketed by Diageo, owns 3 distilleries that provide single malt for one brand. That is Singleton. While marketed under the Singleton umbrella, each distillery contributes its own unique style and expressions, and traditionally these expressions have been targeted to different geographical markets. Glen Ord for Asia, Glendullan for the United States, and Dufftown for Europe. However, all 3 are now becoming more widely available globally. Scotch Malt Whisky Society, cask number 77.71 Serial Thriller. This is a Glen Ord 12-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey. It is moderately peated, matured in refill hogshead, matured for 12 years. It was distilled in April 2009. It's bottled at 59.8% alcohol by volume. The United States had an allocation of 78 bottles, and it was sold for $130. So Glen Ord can be quite challenging to get a hold of, at least here in the United States, due to the way in which they're doing distribution. I'm putting a teaspoon of water in this because this is cask strength and it needs it. It has a bit of a bite. One of the challenges of being a whiskey student, not just a whiskey consumer, but a whiskey student, is getting access to whiskeys in order to study and understand a distillery. And if you want to be a real student of whiskey, as much as possible, you want to try to study all the distilleries particularly in Scotland, who want to be a student of Scotch whiskey, study all the distilleries, their history, their production, their core range, and any special bottlings. So, Glen Ord, little difficult to get a hold of. Glendullan, a little difficult to get a hold of. Dufftown, a bit difficult to get a hold of. And their Singleton releases, the way they're marketing them, the way they're putting them, it's going to be difficult to get these. I think these are sort of like the Flora and Fauna series that Diageo has in terms of their distribution. These smaller, lesser known distilleries, that most of their spirit goes into blends, and so they want to at least make some available, but you may have to go to the distillery to get them. But like the Flora and Fauna series, distilleries that you're otherwise not going to hold of. Unfortunately, Flora and Fauna, not sold here in the United States. So, you got to do what you can, and sometimes what you're going to do is go through an independent bottler such as the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. Now, it's unfortunate that Glen Ord is not releasing bottles here in the United States, and that what they have available at the distillery, according to the website, is these minimal bottlings, bare minimum ABV and so forth. So I watched several whiskey tuber reviews of the various Singleton bottlings, such as Whiskey Novice and the Scotch 4 Dummies, and the consensus, and others, and the consensus is basically the Singleton are really unremarkable to sort of okay whiskeys. We would consider them novice whiskeys, introductory whiskeys for the newbie, not bottlings that are for the enthusiast. They're not bad, according to the various reviews I've watched. It's just that they're just kind of lackluster, which is why you're going to wish Glen Ord did a bottling similar to this Scotch Malt Whisky Society, because this is an absolutely superb whiskey. So, what is it like? If you've had the Lechik 12-year-old or 10-year-old, this is like the Lechik 10-year-old, but on steroids. In fact, off camera, I did a side-by-side comparison because as I was smelling and tasting, I was like, this reminds me of Lechik. And sure enough, side by side, they are very, very, very similar. It's got a moderate peat, the cask influence, but this has a greater mouthfeel and a greater deliverance. But tasted blind, I would think this was a Lechik 10-year-old cask strength. So moderate peat, it's woven really, really well in with everything. Get some honey, some orange citrus, lemon, orchard fruit, a hint of spice, a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of nutmeg, and vanilla on the palate. Sweet on entry, then that smoke and peat character kicks in the mid palate. A little bit of chocolate character there, interwoven with orange and lemon and vanilla. Maybe a little bit of caramel, perhaps a little bit of dried stone fruit, and just a hint of spice. Barrel spice shows up on the back end, hint of cinnamon, maybe just a little bit of clove. That's a nice development, so it changes, so you get something different in the front, in the middle, and to the finish. It has a nice creamy mouthfeel. Really well balanced. It does have a little bit of bite and a little bit of tingle when you're trying to eat, which is why I want to put in a teaspoon and then give it a slight rolling, no shaky to get integrated into the whiskey. Nice long finish. I'm still tasting it now. What would I give in terms of a score? I'm going to go a solid 90 points. Solid 90 points. Now, of course, the only way you're going to get a bottle of Glen Ord from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society is if you are a member. I am not being paid to say this. This is not a promotional video. I'm just saying, If you're a member of the SMWS, you're going to look for distillery number 77. Now this is 0.71, which means that this is bottling 71 or cask 71 from distillery number 77. So you're going to want to look for 77. Now what I want to ask you is, have you ever had Glen Ord? What did you think of it? Have you ever had an independent bottling of Glen Ord? And from what independent bottler did you have it from? And what did you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. All right, if you enjoy studying whiskey along with me, give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And then until next time, Slàinte. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out these other whiskey videos.